talking about building hot rods here. Not talking about sugarcoating. We're talking about everything. Knuckle busting. The rust in your fucking eyes. We're talking about building fucking hot rods. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of It's All About the Build. Brought to you by I.B.F.HotRods, Huntington, Indiana.
As always, it's Elliot Slack.
That's
and
me.
Randy Bunting.
Oh, yeah, it's him.
What's up, guys?
We are going to continue on, like we promised from last week. If you caught episode 7, we're going to continue on. We're talking about building award-winning hot rods, and we were having a pretty good discussion with Randy about one of the biggest awards that you can possibly win, and he was part of one, which was the Ridler Award. We went into some pretty good detail about it, just a kind of introduction of what it is, if you're not familiar with it, and we started diving into exactly what it takes to win an award of that nature. And even if you're not shooting for that, all these ideas and concepts that we're going to tell you about should be written down in the back of the old mental notebook, just to give you an edge over stuff.
And no matter what level you're shooting for, a couple of these ideas you can take to implement into your build.
Yeah, and if you're implementing these, I mean, you're implementing top builders' ways of building cars.
And ideas.
And ideas and everything. So that's where we're coming from. Everything that we do with I.B.F.HotRods, we're building off of these concepts. Now, granted, we're not building Ridler Awards right now. We're not trying to build that vehicle.
We're not into that caliber right now. We're building higher-end custom cars that will most likely just be driven and enjoyed. Which
is what we like to do. But as far as the Ridler Award goes, I mean, when we get that client that wants that, that's where we're going to go. You know, we're completely feasible. But the ideas that we use are that style, that top notch. The thought process is there because Randy's been there. I've been around everything. As far as awards go, I ain't got the award on my back pocket. The resume ain't there. But I know what it takes, and I just haven't been able to be part of somebody dropping all that money to build a fucking Ridler. So that's why we're interviewing Randy right now. That's why we want to dive into Randy's world, because that's how he builds his shit. Whether it's some...
Well, I try to. Sometimes you got to tone it down a little
right.
bit.
Yeah. But I mean, the quality's there, you know?
Yeah. No matter what project I work on from then on, you know, that's my top tier. That's my ceiling. You know what I mean? That kind of workmanship is what I strive for no matter what. Back when this was going on, I didn't know everything, and I still don't know everything, but...
Who the fuck does?
Yeah, who does? But everything that I did learn from that and applied to that, even if it's a $50,000 budget or a $100,000 budget or more.
Or less.
Oh, yeah, or less. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. To me, that's what, in my mind, that's what I strive for. That's the kind of work that I strive for. And...
That's what fucking I.B.F.HotRods strives for. That's why we're both here. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and I just don't see myself doing anything else. That was so stimulating. Be able to be a part of that and build that kind of product for a customer. You know, I don't want to say product, but it was a
car.
It was a car.
It was a fucking build.
It was just a car, but it was.
Right.
But it was. I got to use every nook and cranny of my brain to freedom that we had with that, and that was my high point, you know, in my life and my career.
Well, I mean, I believe your high point is right now. We're building.
That's what I said. That was
right. Okay,
you know,
I got
was.
you. Yeah, past tense.
Past tense, yes. But the amount of just insane. I don't know. I couldn't even put it into words. It was like on another level. Like,
well, I mean, the Ridler Award itself, a Ridler build is a completely another level. You got custom cars and you got fucking Ridler. I mean, they're dropping millions and millions of dollars on these things.
Yeah, the amount of creativity and freedom that you get with that kind of a build, it's insane.
Yeah,
You're on a strict kind of deadline if you're trying to make a certain show,
a certain year.
certain year. You're on a strict deadline. You're on strict kind of parameters, I guess, but you also have a very open mindset on what it could be, if that makes sense.
I guess what I'm hearing is the open mindset is to like how to get from point A to point B to get to the finish line or whatever the fuck you're working on that car.
Yeah, and like we said in the past episode, the whole point of this car is to be elegant, and the design work has to be there, creativity has to be there, the engineering has to be there, especially the fit and finish has to especially be there.
You were getting into about nuts and bolts being the same.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about, fit and finish. When you look down the side of the car, not the side of the car, the underside of the car, most likely nowadays these cars, a lot of people build panels for these cars, like the inside and the underside, to cover up all the ugly or smooth everything out. But sometimes in order for those panels to attach to the car, they need bolted or riveted or whatever you decide to do, push pin, whatever. Most likely bolted if it's on the outside of the car, because you don't want them falling off going down a road. That's the idea. But all the bolts have to match, no matter if it's on the engine, under the car, on the suspension, everything has to match.
So every square foot of it has to have the exact same head, I guess.
Yeah, the head of the bolt.
So if it's an Allen bolt, if it's an Allen head.
I mean, there are obviously some occasions, like with engine accessories and stuff like that, you can't always do the same bolt. Sometimes you have to use Allen keys and stuff like that. But as long as it's chromed or polished the same, then that's fine. Obviously, it's very hard to get everything the same. Even like, especially if you go from the outside to inside. Depending on how you do your interior, you might see button heads here and there or whatever. But especially on the outside, the suspension that we were told or guided by the one head coach that came to our shop.
Right. The judge,
he pointed all this out to us and
gave you a blueprint.
Yeah, gave us a blueprint, and we listened. And you have to, if you're putting all these bolts down underneath the car, they have to be evenly spaced out. Obviously, everything has to be symmetrical. You can't just put bolt holes in wherever you damn feel like.
Right. Well, I mean, okay, so that's a big thing. Symmetry is huge. And when I'm building anything, that's like the left side needs to match the right side. OCD is huge.
And that's especially hard when you're cutting panels apart and remaking.
Right.
Curved panels, convex curves, everything. That's so hard to get the same on both sides.
Yeah. But I mean, just the bolt holes in general, like I've seen plenty of vehicles that they just putting holes and shit. They got
eyeballing it up.
Yeah, eyeballing it up. And I mean, even with stuff that has a smaller budget that comes into the shop.
Even your backyard build, that you shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, these things here, like if you're going to sit there and question why the hell you didn't win an award, and you've put self tappers in, just winging it, and they're exposed.
Yep.
If you get up underneath your vehicle, and you put self tappers in from up top that come down through the floor, and you can see that shit.
You're gonna see all the nibs.
Yeah, you're gonna see all the nibs coming out, man. Like, don't sit there and wonder why you're not. These are gonna dock you points, but these are small, easy things to take care of during the build process.
Yeah, not doing that is just laziness, really.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
Now you can get away with eyeballing shit. Sometimes
certain things, if you have a good eye for it, you can kind of get away with that.
You get close.
But if it's going to be something really visual on the car, you really need to just measure it. If a tape measure won't do it for you, use a what do they call the flexible tape measures that you use for
like the fabric
Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the Taylor tape.
Taylor tape, yes. Yep, that's it.
Or lasers.
Lasers, anything like that.
Lasers are huge. plumb bobs,
Plumb bob, yeah.
the whole all that good stuff. All these should be in your measuring arsenal in your toolbox. You should have more things to measure with than you could possibly imagine. Micrometers, just random shit of that nature.
If we're talking about devices like that, we're going to talk about levels as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's another big thing. Level the shit off before you build it, I mean, this shouldn't even, I mean, this isn't just building award winners. This is just
General knowledge.
Yeah, general knowledge, common sense. But that being said, if you look at something and you're like, I've seen worse, then you're not done making that fucking piece or part or fitment or whatever. That even goes for finishing the side of my fucking house.
Yeah.
If you come to my house and you just did all the siding and fucking trim work and all that stuff, and you're telling me that you've seen worse, you get the fuck off my property, or finish the job. Come on now. Shout out to those assholes that did that to our house.
Anyway.
Anywho.
Yeah, so the bolts have to, underneath the car, they all have to match. The suspension bolts have to match if you're building that caliber car and you're trying to win that kind of award.
Now, you were saying about, towards the end of the last episode or whatever, you were talking about hiding lines. You were doing a dual transmission, dual fucking turbo setup.
Oh, hiding all the plumbing, yeah.
Hiding all the plumbing. Now, even with award winners, okay, so there's kind of a gray area here when it comes to winning awards. A lot of times when you open up the hood and you see the engine, and that's all you're seeing, and you see these big fancy pieces of metal that were shaped, and maybe they weren't even shaped. Maybe they were just bent a little bit, and they have fucking bead rolls in them and stuff like that. But it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember what these things are covering up. Like if you have panels underneath and you have panels over top, these people aren't going to take your car apart to see what's going on.
Actually, they might.
Them.
They might ask you to take the panel off. They almost had us take the scoop off on our 31 Chevy, but they decided they didn't need to because we actually had the front of the grill is open, so you can actually see inside there. So they were actually able to shine their lights inside there and check it out. And they even have mirrors, like little mirrors, extendable mirrors that they can, peek underneath.
Right.
They use that kind of stuff all the time. And they were able to see underneath there and see that it was finished.
Look how many fucking vehicles are out there that the custom side, they have those huge panels that are covering shit and they're winning awards with it. But I know what half of them look like underneath.
Yeah, not so
hiding.
great. Not so great sometimes.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting to hear that they actually tried to get you to.
And I know on the previous build that won the Ridler Award, I was with that shop when we won that one as well. I wasn't really a part of that build, but
There's the second one.
Yeah, they almost had us take off the bottom panel underneath the car.
Were they trying to see if it was metal or fiberglass or something?
No, they wanted to see whether or not it was finished under there.
Right.
Even if the car has panels, it still has to be finished underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
Under the floor. The floor has to be finished, and not just painted. It has to be finished. Like most of those cars are handmade. A lot of those panels are handmade. So if you're covering panels with panels, they need to know if you've done your due diligence and finished it off.
But getting back to those panels, nice little tidbit of information that if you are shooting for something like this, some big awards, some judges will make you remove that shit. So you should finish off everything else underneath, which was what I was getting at with the big panels and stuff. Like I've been part of some builds where they're just covering stuff up. And what I mean covering stuff up, like we're talking about lines, radiator lines,
right,
brake lines, anything and everything they're covering up.
Just to make it more smooth looking.
Right. But I've also been part of builds that we were covering stuff up, but the functionality of it was still there. Like when you pulled these panels off, we were building these panels to cover stuff up. Like we made some fake firewalls, some faux walls, I guess. I don't know what the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah.
But in behind that we had the existing firewall, and we actually came off of like the cowl area where the hood comes down and seats. The actual seal system was on the hood, the inside of the hood instead of down on the cowl. And we came off of that and 90'd off of that and came straight down and made a fake firewall. And then everything behind that firewall, the fake firewall, was all the electrical shit. So it's fuse panel, the brain box for the Coyote that we put in it and everything. So when you actually pulled that off, because it was like 5 or 6 bolts that came across the top, when you pulled that off,
it was accessible.
Everything was right there. Now that was finished off and stuff. It wasn't cared for to the quality of everything else because we had the fake one in there. And if we didn't tell anybody it was fucking there, you know what I mean? No one would have really even gathered what's going on.
Right.
Everything underneath these panels, I was going to get at saying, make sure all that shit's finished, but now really fucking make sure it's all finished, because if the judges pull that off and you got a bunch of fucking chaos.
Yeah, I mean, not every award that you're going to go for is going to ask you to do that. So
right.
That's just kind of like at the end of the day, that's kind of like are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Are you personally okay with that kind of stuff?
Yeah. But you should be trying to make everything beautiful for the most part. I mean, it shouldn't be going through your head, oh, nobody's ever going to see it. Like up underneath the dashes and shit, I try to make all the wiring as clean as possible. Like, yeah, when you got wires running here and there and everywhere else, you can't make it the absolute 100% prettiest fucking thing.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a car and it's going to have wiring, it's going to have plumbing.
But you bet your ass it's going to be tidied up. It's not going to be a rat's nest. Everything's going to be loomed and zip tied or fucking Velcro tied.
No matter what, you try to strive for a factory finish.
Yeah.
Even if it's custom, it still want it to look like it was made that way from a factory.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ideal goal, I think.
Right.
No matter what caliber build you're doing, you always want that professionalism. No matter if it's a rat rod,
yep,
or a patinaed car or what.
Right.
I feel like that's for everybody. That should be the goal: is professionalism.
I feel like if somebody brings us a vehicle and it's half done or 3/4 done or whatever we do, I strive for whatever we've done to that car to be the best thing on that fucking car. Whether it's re-engineered something, whether it's just updating fucking whatever, brakes, suspension, whatever. I want whatever we touch to be like, damn, look at that.
Yep. And it works correctly.
Right. Which brings us to the engineering side of things. It's one thing to open up a hood and it's chintzy as fuck, and you've got a new hinge system that you bought, but you didn't quite put it in right. So when you open it up, it doesn't quite open properly.
Not smoothly. It's like it kind of binds.
Yeah, it kind of binds, whether that's that or anything that you've done, just strive for it to be the best, even if your ability isn't, on par with some heavy hitters. It should function properly. It should be working properly. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work right, it doesn't work right. That's the thing about building hot rods, is it's going to tell you if you fucking half-assed it. Whoever gets in it, they're going to know if you half-assed it. If the window track system doesn't work properly because the boss told you to half-ass it and insisted on the half-assing, it's half-assed, but hey, it goes up and down. But still, it was half-assed to get there.
How well does it go up and down?
Yeah, how well does it go up and down? How long is it going to fucking hold out? Like, is it going to be better for you to just rig something up, or is it going to be better for you to order something new and make it right? And that goes for metal too, man. You can't just paint over fucking rust.
No, not unless you want it to come back.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you get into some situations where there's some fucking rust. And you clean it up and you wire brush it and you fucking sand it and you do whatever you can. It has to be prepped properly. It has to be cleaned up properly. It has to have a certain products put on it. Whatever product you choose, there's 85 million different fucking rust converters, rust inhibitors, and sealer systems, and blah, blah, blah. But you can't just half-ass this shit. You know, it just can't. It's going to show. If you paint over some rust and you get underneath the car and you're trying to win awards and there's some rust that's painted over, then what the fuck do you expect? What do you expect, Randy? You expect to win something if you're just painting over rust and questioning things? Like it doesn't happen.
I don't think so.
But if you're just trying to sell something, at the next auction, and it goes out on the auction block and nobody can even fucking get underneath the damn thing or whatever.
Well, I hope you sleep well at night.
Yeah, right. And when the karma train comes and runs it right up your ass, don't fucking question it. Because I've worked with some shops in my day, Randy, and it's pretty fucking disgusting what some people do.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Right. But that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother episode. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
I'll do 6 or 7 shots of tequila, and then I'll really get into that fucker. But, yeah, back to the topic at hand. If you're shooting for awards, a lot of it's just common sense. I understand, like Randy said last episode about they hired a judge to come in and actually go over stuff with them to look over things. But how much of it was common sense, Randy? Like when you really looked at it and was like, that makes perfect sense.
A lot of it was, there were a few things that actually surprised me as far as like car building goes, because it's something I've never tried to do before. But
you got any one example?
Okay,
of that?
So like we said, like all the bolts have to match. That's kind of, that's kind of an easy one. People don't think about that. I never thought about that.
I never thought about that either. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every bolt that I use, it's not like
but
it's
it
an
makes
old
sense.
fucking rusted piece of shit.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
But then you go to your brakes,
Uh-huh.
and granted, the last two awards or the last two cars that won that I was a part of that shop, we chromed the rotors, right?
Right.
You don't have to do that, but they shouldn't look worn. This is a brand new car, and
Makes perfect sense.
the last 2 years I was there with those two Ridler cars. Our competition had worn rotors, like
Yeah.
they drove the thing. That's fine after the show's over.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, you have to drive the car, but there are tricks around that. Like
like take the fucking brakes apart and put new rotors on.
Well, there's that. So for that 31 Chevy, we actually had 2 sets of rotors for that car. We had the chrome rotors, and then we had the normal rotors, and we used the Willwood brakes for that car. And so we had a second.
Shout out to Willwood.
Yes, a shout out to Willwood. We had a second set of brakes for that car for after when the show's over and it goes back to the customer. If he wanted to drive the car, he could put these rotors on. But what we found out was by going online and finding some heavy duty felt, we actually milled the brake pads down and glued, if it wasn't adhesive, I think it was adhesive felt, but we glued really stiff felt to the brake pads.
So it would work, but it wouldn't work.
It would work, but it wouldn't scratch up the chrome rotors.
Well, it's genius.
And all I had, like I said in a previous episode, all I had to do was drive forward, drive back, drive forward once, and drive back. So that was it. But then it was so effective that we actually were able to drive the car like that to its spot.
Yeah.
And after that show, we went to a couple different shows. We went to Vegas. They went to Cleveland. They went to a couple other shows in the circuit. And don't get me wrong, we actually had to switch those. We had to change those out. We had to change the felt out later down the road because it doesn't last. It has to last long enough for one show.
Well, you got to remember, you're not going fucking 20. You're, 5 mile an hour,
maybe? And all you have to do, as long as you don't have a fucking big-ass cam and it's like wants to pull the damn thing.
Right.
You're fine. We had the thing tuned just enough to get it to drive to a spot, and that's pretty much it. But anyway, so there's that. You have.
Let me barge in here, because the funny thing is you're telling some fucking serious shit here. The guy that I worked for, who ended up getting a grade 8 finalist and he also plays top 12 SEMA. Turns out the morning of the show, or before the morning they were going to leave to come to Detroit to try to, get a grade 8 and try to get a Ridler Award, they had letters on the outside of their tire.
Oh, and that was my next subject. Yep.
Yeah, and if you're not aware, you cannot have letters on your tires.
The judges don't want any.
They don't want anything.
They don't want anything.
Yeah.
Names.
You can't say 265 R fucking 22 fucking blah, blah,
and
blah.
That's my next thing. We learned that they don't like that. They don't like names on the like the rotors,
Nothing.
the brake calipers.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But going back before you go off on a fucking tangent, because it looks like you're getting ready to fucking go off on another tangent. What I wanted to say was they figured this out right before they were getting ready to leave.
Oh,
it's fucking 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that, and they're like, "Holy shit, what are we gonna do?" So they took a pad,
A DA
or whatever, and they started going to town. Well, turns out they were able to do it, but now they're sitting there staring at a beat up fucking outside wall of a tire.
Yeah.
So
there's a trick to
so there's a trick to that. So what they did was they went and they looked in their cupboard or whatever, and turns out they have the trusty old rubber in a can. The old what the hell's that? The guy who's always painting it on his boat and floating on a boat.
Oh, Flex Seal?
The Flex Seal, baby.
Yeah.
And they painted it on, man, and to this day that I know of, it's still there. It's not coming off.
Holy hell.
But they went through the circuits, man.
Yeah.
Top 12 SEMA.
You never know.
Grade 8 finalist.
The citizens walking past these cars don't know.
Right.
They don't know.
But I had to throw that out there because,
But no, you're right. The judges don't want to see any kind of display of names, and what we had to do was DA all the tires smooth inside and out.
Now, if you're trying to win an award somewhere else, it's not going to matter.
That doesn't matter. The whole point of the Ridler is that it's elegant and smooth and new and clean and they just it's
right. But if you're trying to hit some awards like this, doing what we're just talking about could possibly put you over the edge, because these details to the average person don't really like. It's not there.
That's what I mean. When we had this car at SEMA, or not SEMA, we had the car at SEMA, but that was later down the road. When we had it at Detroit, a lot of the competition didn't do that kind of stuff. I don't know if it was just they just didn't know. I assume they would do the same kind of recon that we did. But
well, let's think about it. We were part of builds. I was part of a build with that company, and we went to Detroit with a pretty pricey vehicle, and at the time we were ignorant to it, so we didn't know.
Yeah, so you can win a grade 8 that way, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
If as long as your car is better than the other 30 that show up, or whatever it is, 30, 25, whatever the hell it is.
Well, the crazy thing is a lot of the cars that are there that are fucking amazing. Like there's some, don't get me wrong, some of when I go to Detroit, there's some shit there that should be grade 8 finalists, but it was shown already. Or the company was like, fuck it, I'm taking pictures of this because I'm building it, and it's not about that award.
And they shouldn't be going for the Ridler then.
Right, but I'm just saying.
But yeah, I know.
I'm just saying they just took it to Detroit to show it off.
Yeah, and we've done that in the previous years. But that's really what it takes, and the most important part of that whole thing is not getting the accidental pictures out there.
Yeah, which is kind of I guess it's a gray area. I understand, but how, as a shop owner or something, you're building. This is one of your biggest marketing avenues as far as engineering and everything else like that. People like to see that while it's going. I've been driving down the road, test driving vehicles, and I've had people literally chase me down and like, hey man, I've been watching this on Instagram or Facebook.
And there's a place
and
time for that, definitely.
Yeah.
But there's also a place and time for the Ridler Award. That's a whole nother animal That's something that you really have to. It takes a lot of guts and a lot of.
Well, you could sit there and spend 3 years building a fucking car and go there and not even make a grade 8.
Seriously,
You put $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, however much money you want to put into something, you could literally go there, and it turns out that year the class of cars is just out of fucking control, and you just don't get it.
Yeah, it depends on your competition. It really does. Luckily for us, our competition was great. It was hard. You know what I mean? Our competition was hard both those years, but we had a couple edges as far as what the judges were looking for. People could argue that's politics, but I wouldn't agree with that because we didn't pay anybody off. We paid to have a judge come in, but he didn't tell us this is what it takes. We're not going to pick you because you do this.
No, you brought a judge in there to help.
We brought the judge in to help, and I don't know how many other places have done that.
Well, it's like fucking football players at practice having referees on hand.
Right.
During practice.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, that was a fucking penalty.
Yeah, right.
Stop doing that.
Right. Because in a way that's what they probably want, that because that's what they're looking for. The judges are looking for a certain thing in the Ridler Award, and when they don't see that, that's, granted, we could have lost that just as easy if we didn't fit our panels right, or didn't paint the car well enough, or didn't finish the car well enough. We could have lost that just because we had shaved tires or
right.
or whatever it is.
Marks on the brakes.
We had the complete package. That's all it was. That's all it came down to. We had the complete package compared to everyone else. And that car was so different compared to previous years. And going back to the competition is always fierce, no matter what.
And having the edge. I mean, we're talking about minuscule shit.
That's really what it is. It's really, really minuscule. It's
any award you're going to get, whether it's the Ridler Award or whether it's a different award.
No matter what.
These are things to think about to get above, to get that edge, to get that fucking cherry on the whipped cream. Like, it's one thing to have the ice cream, the fudge, the peanuts, the fucking whatever.
We put many
the whipped cream
on that thing.
Yeah, the whipped cream, but you don't have the cherry on top. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the cherry on top. And if you want to win awards, you got to put the cherry on top. Or don't bitch that you didn't win an award.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
At the end of the day, it comes down to your competition.
Yeah, it does. Competition is huge.
Unless you're able to pay them off. Good for you.
Right. Yeah. If you become a sponsor or whatever. But even then, even if you're fucking sponsored, a lot of times if you're sponsoring stuff or whatever, they're not going to allow you to even be in it.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're a sponsor, you can't be the headline and act.
You can't win the fucking $10,000.
Right. Yeah.
You gave them 5 and they give you 10.
Yeah.
Whatever. Who cares? We're talking everything we're talking about underneath it. We're talking about outside, paint job, panel fitment, everything. But inside is just as, in my opinion, the inside of a vehicle is almost the most important part.
It is the most important part. I agree with you, because
like the interior, because you spend all your fucking time
that's
there.
where you're sitting and driving. That's what you look at.
Yeah. Now, when you go to car shows, 95% of people don't even fucking look in some cars. If the car doesn't tickle my fancy, I won't even go look in it.
If it doesn't speak to me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't speak to me. And then if it does speak to me and I go look inside and it looks horrible.
You're a little disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times a car speaks to me either for what it is.
I mean, you have a certain list of your favorite cars. Obviously, you're going to go towards those, gravitate towards those, but there's certain cars.
I wouldn't call it favorite car. I don't even fucking have a favorite car. I have cars that I've worked on and I've learned about and know that something's rare.
Right. Okay.
And if I come across something like that, look at that.
You can look at it that way, yeah.
Yeah. And then I feel obligated to talk to the person because he's sitting on his fucking lawn chair right behind it. And it's like, he's looking at me, looking at him, looking at this. Hey, buddy, how is this your ride? Oh, yeah. And he comes and talks to me all about it. And it's like, yeah, I did it all myself. Well, it's great. I love it. I love that you did it all yourself.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
But the funny thing is, 9 times out of 10, when somebody tells me he did it all himself, they're like, well, I didn't do this right. You know, you can see the flaws in the paint. I painted it myself, and there's fucking runs all over it or whatever. Well, fix them. Why didn't you fix it when you were there? Why didn't you take the 10 minutes and fix the fucking thing, or 20 minutes, or whatever? If you fucked it up, you fucked it up.
You know, people are just okay with that
But
kind of stuff.
that's the thing, man.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with. I've seen worse. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just not that. I'm not there. I like awards. I like the whole concept of humbling yourself, challenging yourself. I like that. But I also like driving the fucking things too. So there's a gray area.
That's an award itself.
Yeah, there's a gray area there, man. You know, I can sit here and bitch about awards, and I can fucking sit here and be like, I love awards, all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a gray area. Now, if you can drive the shit out of this thing and win fucking Ridler, that's what I'm talking about.
I like that.
That's
my
ridiculous.
favorite kind of cars.
Like if you could win the Ridler, turn around and outside the Ridler, like if they got, what the fuck's it called? The ripping and the racing around the track.
Autocross?
That's it. The autocross.
Yeah.
If you could fucking pull the Ridler out and just run the piss out of it.
Well, Battle of the Builders is like that over in SEMA. You actually have to go and do the autocross event.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I would love to be a part of that someday.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you don't have to do that for the Riddler. You just have to, like I said, pull up left, pull up right, and then that's it. Just drive to your spot.
It's interesting, you know, whatever you're trying to win, like the Battle of the Builders and stuff. I mean, you're going to have to be on your game the whole way around.
That completely. That's like a complete package, and more so than a Riddler, in a different way.
Yeah,
and obviously in a different way. That's two different types of awards. That's glamour and the go
performance.
Yeah.
It's like race cars. You know,
and I was just there last SEMA event, and there was some incredible workmanship there.
Right,
incredible.
Yeah.
I was looking at Ridler cars. It reminded me of being in Detroit.
Yeah, craftsmanship that don't even fucking bother with Ridler Awards. Don't even bother trying to go to these places to win those awards because that's not what they're all about.
I mean, everybody has their cup of tea.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever kind of tea they like.
Yeah. Earl Grey.
Yeah.
A little bit of mint.
But I enjoyed building that car. I'm going to go back into it because I kind of wanted to talk about a couple of things that I got to work on.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite things, my biggest part of that was the interior, pretty much. I got to basically build the whole dash and the center console. And the way we built that was completely clean, right? Like, you don't see anything on the dash other than the gauges in the middle and the shifter. That was it. We wanted that dash to be completely smooth and free of debris, right? Debris, yeah. So I actually built a console up above to house the window switches and everything. You couldn't see any door handles in that car at all. No door handles, no window switches, nothing. On the inside and outside of that, obviously they're the door poppers, that's how you open it. But the way you actually get into the car is by remote.
Rolling in and rolling out.
Rolling in and rolling, yeah.
Joke. These are jokes, people.
It's by remote, not by door poppers. Actually, the window goes down. When you hit a remote, the window goes down, and you reach in and pop it over. Even the ignition switch was hidden. When you're sitting in the car, you don't see anything mechanically except for the gauges in the middle. I thought that was pretty neat. And then I got to build the center console. And the way I did the center console was had an aluminum bezel that matched the contour of the shifter radius, right? So the way how I had to mount the shifter was at an angle so that center console actually formed to the same radius as the shifter. So the shifter doesn't actually, protrude longer or shorter when it goes up or down. I thought that was pretty cool. But my favorite part about that car was, and I haven't really gotten a lot of people talking about it because no one really, I guess, even realized what they were, but was actually the spark plug wires. I got the idea from old Model A's, and back in the day, the old Hot Rods, they had the spark plug tubes. The spark plug wire goes through the tube, makes it clean.
Fuck yeah.
But I actually made stainless tubing for all the spark plug wires. You don't see any plug wires at all. Looking in that engine bay, you see just polished tubing going from the spark plug boots. And that took me probably at least 2 weeks, even mock up those, because I made aluminum tubing to start.
So you would have had to put plug wires through and then cap them.
I put the plug wires through straight.
Yeah.
With everything straight.
And then you bent it.
And then I bent it.
Right.
Yeah. And then left a little bit extra at the end so I could trim where I needed to and then put the boots on. But I actually spent probably like a week just mocking up fake tubing out of aluminum so I could bend it easily. And then going after that with stainless tubing to match all the bends by hand to get everything to look and fit right.
Right. And that's not just because it was a Ridler, because it's the fucking way it had to be done. You weren't going to spend all that money on the stainless, and you weren't going to, well, I guess at that point in time it didn't fucking matter. But it was easier to go about that way because you could bend it, and then if you didn't like the bend, you could, in essence, go backwards.
Well, because I only had one shot. Once I put the spark plug wires through, that was it.
Right.
It was being stainless. It's a harder metal, so you can't just unbend them.
Right. That's what I was
and
just
then rebend
at.
it. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was a one-shot deal where you're buying new spark plug wires.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff that we do, like, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times you get one shot at it.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
if you don't fucking think about it 17 times,
you plan ahead, and if you don't plan well enough, you're doing it again.
Right. It's stupid, and nobody thinks about this stuff. Like, a lot of stuff that we do, we stare at and we engineer it in our heads first, and then we come back. It's just like shaping metal and shit. If you're lucky enough to have a panel already, you can mimic it. But metal,
it's so hard to mimic your own work.
Yeah, go do a left one and then do a right one and then make it fucking perfect.
The first one you do is always the best looking one.
Right, which is crazy.
Then you do it again, you're like, man, this looks like shit.
Yeah, which is crazy because you just fucking did it.
Yeah.
I guess because you're left and right-handed, depending on which side you start at.
Or left brain, right brain.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's probably what it is. How many times? Okay, so it's one thing to narrow a rear end, but it's another thing to narrow a rear end and literally have it hit exactly where you fucking want it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of planning just to do that.
Yeah. And then, just building a...
That's not just measure twice, cut once. That's measure 10 times, cut once.
Yeah. I mean, you could sit there and look and be like, okay, yeah, I think we're going to need 2.5 inches off this. And you do all the math and everything, and you're close. 2.5 inches would have done the trick, but it wouldn't have been perfect. You would have had to then turn around and put spacers in, or maybe 2.5 inches would have been close, but it still would have been too fucking wide, and then you're still shit out of luck. And it's the same thing with rust repair. If there's rust on everything and you can't even fucking know where anything is, and you're rebuilding it, basically, you got to figure, you got to make everything out of cardboard first, and you got to bend everything. And a lot of times, bending shit, hard bends.
You got to know where your bends are.
Yeah.
You got to measure your bends right.
Well, not only that, you got to plan ahead. If you put a bend in a piece of metal and it turns out you should have bent the other fucking side of it first, now you're like, how the fuck am I going to bend this and make it look good?
Now you got to do it by hand.
Yeah. And you're beating and smacking and shit, and it's a headache. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to this, Randy?
I mean, there's so much more I could talk about that kind of stuff, but I feel like we've gone on long enough for this episode.
Basically, I mean, if we're talking about building the award winners that you want to build, to wrap it up and to give you some key notes here, if you just started at the end of this episode, like, fucking take your time and don't half-ass it. Like, literally just don't half-ass it. Like, you could have no skill whatsoever, but if it functions, it functions. If it functions rough, it fucking functions rough. You're not done with it.
Yeah.
If it's not lined up, it's not lined up. Like, the vehicle's not going to lie to you. If it runs rough, it runs rough. If it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good. If you look down the side of it and waves at you as it goes, as you walk by it.
Are you going to be okay with that?
Right. No, you're not going to be okay because you're trying to. This episode's all about fucking winning awards. You shouldn't be okay with that, especially if you're paying somebody.
Then you got to be okay with losing.
Right. Being a loser. But there's so much more that we could talk about on this. But we're going to cut this one short. Are we going to do an episode 3 of this? Or are we just going to leave it at this?
To be determined.
Right. We'll get back to it someday down the road.
Yeah, we'll come back to it eventually. I have so much more to talk about that thing.
But hopefully these last 2 episodes gave you some, perspective as to why. Like, I can sit here and be like, yeah, you got to fucking make it right. And you got to put the time into it and all that stuff. But hopefully these put into perspective, like what judges might be looking for, or some tips and tricks, man, of like how to do it, what to do. We dove into quite a bit of information here in the last 2 episodes on these things and trying to build award winners. Whether or not it's just right down the road at the fucking mom and pop shop or not. If you want to go down to the mom and pop shop and you want to take over, if you want to win that fucking chocolate sundae or whatever, at the fucking ice cream shop, you can. And just take the effort and do it right. You want to be the best fucking car there, no matter what, period. I mean, I want to be above and beyond. There's a lot of builders out there that are building some high dollar, high quality stuff. And even if it's not high dollar, quality is going to win you the awards. And if you half-ass it, then don't expect anything but a half-ass award, maybe, if you're lucky.
Quality is going to win over money spent.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. No matter if you spent $1 million or $100,000 or $20,000. Quality is going to overshadow that big time.
Yeah. Because you can put a lot of money into something, but if the builder comes to you and says, well, their aftermarket parts are not supposed to fit, you should start questioning some things because that has happened.
Yeah.
In my world, I've seen it, and we'll get into a topic like that of finding the right builder if that's the route you want to go, finding the right company to work on your stuff. Should you be going to a smaller shop or a larger shop? The benefits of both, things of that nature. Whether or not that's going to be next week or another week down the road, we'll find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Elliot Slack.
And I'm Randy.
That's Randy Bunning over there. And like always, here's to you guys. Get out in the garage, build your shit, make it great, win awards. And don't forget, before you tip that drinky, one must pop that pinky. And here's to you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week, have a good one. It's all about the Build Podcast. Over and out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of It's All About the Build Podcast. Please comment and let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel to follow along, and if you haven't already, check out our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok to keep up with what we have going on every week. Thank you all for listening.